Hello, so today we are going to be exploring number patterns or number sequences. A number sequence is a list of numbers that are linked by a rule. If you work out the rule, you can work out the next numbers in the sequence. Today I'm going to show you a very simple technique that I like to use, and it helps increase the chances of children getting more answers correct because they tend to use the technique because it is fun and has a catchy name. Then we're going to take a look at a very simple example of this technique in action and look at question styles, and I'll continue to mention this as it's very important not just to practice but also to practice in the styles that the questions will appear in the transfer test itself. So without further ado, let's jump in and take a look. Okay, so let's begin. Here we have a series of numbers. So we're going to introduce the technique first of all. We have a series of numbers, and what we've got to do before we do anything else is take a look at our numbers and see if we can identify what's going on from one number to the next number. Now, the technique that I like to use for this is called the frog hop technique, where the children will jump from one number to the next and find out what has increased or decreased and by how much from one number to the next. So in this case, you can see that the frog hop has covered +5. Sometimes it might be multiplied by a number, subtracted by a number, divided by a number, but in this case it's +5. And then we have to see if that technique fits, because it could change. It could go up and become +6, it could go down and become +4, but in this case the rule is consistent. It is +5 again, +5 again, and then we apply our own frog jump and it becomes +5 again to give us the next number, which is 28, and finally our last frog jump, another +5, which gives us 33. Now, that's the frog hop or the frog jump technique which you can use, and it just increases the chances of you getting it right because you're highlighting what the difference is between the numbers, and then you're seeing if the rule is consistent or if the rule is changing as you progress through the number pattern, okay, or through the series of numbers. So let's take a look now at some more complicated ones leading up to some hard, tricky questions, very similar in style that you would see in the transfer test itself. So let's take a look at our example here. This is not as straightforward as just a series of numbers, and we have to continue those numbers. In this example, we've been given the rule that we must apply to our numbers. And in this situation, the rule is multiply the previous number by 2 and add a half. So it gives you some information. David uses this rule to write a sequence of 4 numbers. The first number that David writes is 7. The third number is 29 and a half. Write the 2 missing numbers. So we can see we've got the 7, we can see we've got the 29 and a half, and we have to put in these 2 missing numbers. And we're going to use the rule up here to help us work that out. So let's do that. Let's start here. And it says that we've got to multiply the previous number. So if we're looking for this blank, the previous number is the 7. It says to multiply that by 2. Now 7 times 2 is 14. And then add a half. Your first missing number is 14 and a half. Okay, now we've got to continue, and we could check that we've got this answer right if we apply the rule and end up with 29 and a half. So let's do that. 14 times 2 is 28. Don't forget, this catches a lot of children out, don't forget the times your half by 2. So 28 add 2 halves is 29. Now don't forget, add the additional half, which gives you 29 and a half. These are very common mistakes that the children either forget to multiply the half by 2 or add on the additional half. So be on red alert when you see questions like that. So far, so good with the sequence. Now we're going to apply it to the 29 and a half. So in this case, we're going to take the 29 and multiply it by 2. 29 times 2 is 58. Just hold on to that for the minute. Don't forget to multiply your half by 2. That gives you another 1. So the 58 plus the 1 gives us 59. And don't forget to add the additional half that is up here. Our final number is 59.5. So there's a question example very similar to style as you might come across in the transfer test. Let's take a look at another style. Okay, question style number 2. So you can see in this example we do have a sequence of numbers, so therefore we can apply the frog hop or the frog jump technique. The question says, look at the sequence of numbers below. Complete the sequence by writing the correct numbers in the 2 spaces below. So we're going to start with what we know, and we know that the first number is 167. So let's go forward first of all, because you can see there is a sequence of numbers going forward. Then we'll worry about the original number that started this all off. So frog hop technique, we go from 167 to 171. What did we do? We added 4. Okay, now don't assume that the pattern is add 4 every time. Don't make that mistake. Let's continue our frog hop. We're going to go from 171 to 176. This time it has become plus 5. So the pattern is changing slightly, but we should start to see something happening. Our next frog hop, we plus 6, going from 176 up to 182. Now we can make the assumption that on our next jump we're going to be plus 7. So let's add 7 onto 182 is 189. Now let's go back. We're going to jump all the way back and try and work out our first number. Now that we can see that there is a sequence going on up here, we're going to jump backwards. No prizes for guessing what the pattern is. It would be plus 3 going from here to here if we were going forward. So we are going backwards, so it becomes minus 3. If you're going backwards, write it underneath your frog hop. Taking away 3 gives you 164. Okay, so hopefully you can see how the frog hop technique is useful to work out numbers going forward and also going backwards through the number pattern. Okay, and finally, this question style has become very popular over the last few years in previous transfer test papers. So let's take a look. In this question, we've been given 3 rules. In previous questions, it could be up to 5 rules. Okay, so I've seen it up to 5 rules. And you have to read the rules and then try and figure out which of the sequence of numbers down here the rule applies to. So let's start at the start, read our way through and see what we have to do. So rule A says multiply the number by 2, then subtract 1. Rule B says add 4 to the previous number, then multiply by 2. Rule C says add half to the previous number, then multiply by 3. Look at the number sequences below. Match the correct rule to each number sequence. There's a whole lot of information in there, so this is why if you're familiar with this question technique, read these over briefly, understand what it's looking for, now go back up and have a look at the rules again. We're going to take one of these rules and see if we can apply it to each one of these, and if it works, we will have the rule that applies to this number sequence. So let's start off by looking at rule A. Let's just start there. Multiply the number by 2, then subtract 1. So let's go to our first number sequence where it said multiply the number by 2 and subtract 1. So multiply the number by 2, so 1 times 2 is 2, and then subtract 1 is 1. Clearly this is not rule A, okay? Definitely not rule A. Let's go through to the next one. Multiply the number by 2, then subtract 1. Well, we can tell it didn't work here, so it's not going to work here again. Multiply 1 by 2 should be 2, subtract 1 would bring you back to 1. It is not that sequence of numbers, it's not rule A. Down here, multiply the number by 2. If you haven't already guessed it because it's your only choice, it's going to be this one. Multiply the number by 2 gives you 12, subtract 1 gives you 11. Let's keep going just to make sure we've got it. There could be a couple of these examples that are similar. Multiply the number by 2 gives us 22, subtract 1 gives us 21. Do the same again, gives us 42, subtract 1 gives us 41. We have found the first rule. This question, and this sequence of numbers belongs to rule A. Okay, next one, add 4 to the previous number, then multiply by 2. So we're going to add 4 to the previous number. 4 onto 1 gives us 5, multiply it by 2 gives us 10. Boom, boom, we seem to be in the right direction. However, let's continue to apply the rule just to make sure. Add 4 to the previous number, so 10 plus 4 makes 14. Multiply by 2 gives us 28. We seem to be on the right track. Multiply or add 4 to this number gives us 32. Multiply by 2 gives us 64. This is rule B. Now, we obviously only have one choice left, so this must be rule C, but let's just double check. This is something I would stick in my answer now and come back to once the test is over and check that we've got everything right. But let's do it now. So this should be rule C. Add half to the previous number and multiply by 3. So we start off here because we're looking at the previous number. So add half to this makes it 1.5. 1.5 times 3 is 4.5. 4.5 add half is 5. Multiply by 3 gives me 15. 15 plus a half is 15.5. Multiplied by 3, let's do our 15 times 3 is 45. Our half times 3 is 1.5. 45 plus 1.5 is 46.5. We've got rule C. So there we have it. Those are the types of questions, very much the question style that you will come across in the transfer test. I suggest now you watch the video again, you get familiar with those question styles and how to apply the technique if it's needed, and then have plenty of practice of your own. You can make up these questions, or if you have resources to back this up, have a go at that. So I hope you found that helpful or useful. Again, I keep saying it, get familiar with the question styles. Over the past few years, those questions come up quite a bit, especially in that style. So if you practice lots of examples of those types of questions, you will be really well prepared to tackle them when they come up in the transfer test. Okay, stay tuned. Next up is a terrible, terrible bad dad joke.